Wembanyama is going to win Rookie of the Year, and he is going to deserve it. Chet Holmgren can really play. I like him. I respect him. I see what Oklahoma City is doing. But Wembanyama is something special. But Victor Wembanyama last night, 28-13 with 7 assists, 5 blocks. That was a statement performance. Perkins, and then we're right before, when they talk about the Rookie of the Year situation is over, Victor Wembanyama is the real deal. So is Chet Holmgren.
Yes, we all know how one name is currently creating the ultimate buzz in the NBA so far. One youngster that has risen above the ranks of his peers and is settling in fine among the very best of the best in the league. Yeah, you guessed right. We're talking about none other than the current NBA Rookie of the Year, Victor Wembanyama. Now, with the NBA season almost upon us, the San Antonio Spurs will once again look to their main man to champion the charge for a long-awaited playoff appearance that now seems possible thanks to this one man. But then, with so much responsibility already being placed on the shoulders of the young lad, you really can't help but wonder how the Spurs would cope if their superstar was to be sidelined for an extended period. What next if the emerging Wemby suffered a devastating injury? Well, come along, folks, as we take a look at how the French sensation has risen to become the pillar of an entire franchise and how they might cope without him. But before we get this party started, kindly take a second to leave a like and subscribe on this channel to help us grow. This will make a huge difference to us, and in doing so, we can continue creating more new and exciting content for you guys. Awesome! Now, let's get down to business. Talk about the young sensation that is Victor Wembanyama today, and even non-basketball fans will acknowledge what could only be a once-in-lifetime kind of greatness.
Wemby is averaging 19, 19, 10, and 10 with over 3 blocks per game. Only 3 rookies in NBA history have done it: David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, and the one and only Diesel himself, Shaquille O'Neal. The last part that you're talking about in terms of how much they wanted, you talked about Embiid. We saw him going for the MVP last year. We see Jokic, right? We're not surprised at his greatness. We understand how phenomenal and great he is. What I walked away with loving outside of the obvious future greatness of Victor Wembanyama, I walked away with even more appreciation for Giannis.
But hey, ever wondered how a 20-year-old managed to become such a formidable force and a dominant figure in the ever-so-competitive NBA? Well, here's a little backstory about how the youngster held the entire NBA to ransom last season. Now, when the San Antonio Spurs picked the Consequences Man of the Moment as the first overall pick of the 2023 NBA drafts, it didn't come as one bit of a surprise. That's because, much like Caitlin Clark in the WNBA earlier this year, the buzz about this youngster had spread like wildfire, and everyone who knew him knew what he could bring to the table. However, not many really understood the caliber of star he was until the Summer League preseason competition. This is because Wemby hadn't been an NCAA college sensation like the rest. No, he had come in all the way from France. And even though his clips and highlight reels already saturated the internet, they really didn't paint a full picture of everything Wemby had to offer. But they did serve one purpose though, and it was to give people a heads up of what they were about to witness, because tell you what, going in blindly on a star like Wemby can cause an overload of sensory bliss, and that's not even an overstatement. Moreover, if the clips had been a warning to the other NBA teams, they probably didn't pay enough heed, because once the Frenchman arrived, he was an instant hit. Game after game, he was dishing out judgments to every opposition like a god in the game, and by the end of the season, one thing was clear. This youngster had come to dominate. His stats for the season were unlike anything we'd seen before.
This young buck is coming in here trying to show me what he's got. Let me remind him who the hell I am. And when Wembanyama said, wait a minute, guess who I am? And that is what you look for from the game of basketball. Giannis don't talk like that, but he plays like that. And that's what I love. That's what we saw last night. And the fact that Wembanyama showed up the way that he did shows us what kind of attitude he has. And I'm glad you brought up Chet Holmgren. He talks it about people he knows he's going to go directly up against. And he's like, I'm coming. I'm going to bust your living you know what. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. And then sure enough, the competition comes.
21.5 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 3.9 assists per game for a rookie still learning his way around the country? Simply unbelievable. And even if the San Antonio Spurs ultimately missed out on the playoffs for yet another season, there was absolutely no doubt about who the Rookie of the Year would be. He had announced himself to the world in spectacular fashion, but he still didn't stop there. The 2024 Olympics in his home country, France, offered him another platform to take his skills to the national team, and he did so in style too. He was the undisputed star of the show as France strode their way to the final, only to lose out to the United States team of pro assassins. Now, with the new NBA season almost upon us, he's already rearing to go again. But what does the future hold for him and his Spurs team? Well, for the most part, there's one thing we already know for sure, and it's the fact that Wemby will be the core around which the Spurs will be looking to build their team again. He already assumed this role to some extent last season, and you just know he'll be pivotal to whatever they'll be looking to do this season. Of course, he won't be doing it alone. He'd have the likes of Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and Jeremy Sochan, among others, to share the workload with. Spurs have also brought in an experienced addition this summer in the person of 12-time NBA All-Star point guard Chris Paul to help bolster the ranks and provide a much-needed stability. There's no denying what the former Golden State Warrior will bring to the Spurs that will be looking to make their first playoffs in 6 years. But for the perceived quality on the roster, everyone, fans and players alike, will all be looking to one man to provide the firepower when the season kicks off. And that man is 20-year-old Victor Wembanyama. I mean, not since the days of young LeBron and his first stint with the Cavaliers have we seen a team place so much responsibility on the shoulders of a young boy. He's quickly climbed the ranks and now almost seems like the leader of this Spurs team. Of course, there's nothing wrong with building your team around your star man, is there? Certainly not. However, the problem the Spurs team could have, and one that they undoubtedly would already live in terror of, is the possibility of a long-term injury to their star man. You gotta wonder what would happen then, right? What would be the fate of the San Antonio Spurs if their one-man showstopper were to be sidelined for an extended period? It definitely would come as a big encouragement for them to find out that their man of the moment doesn't have a worrying injury record. Yet. However, they'll also be wary of the fact that they are not well and truly out of the woods in that regard. You see, big players like Wemby, players who exceed the 7'3" mark often carry a looming threat of getting injured at some point. And when they do, it's usually not very subtle. This is because they have a higher center of gravity and tend to put a lot of weight on their lower body. As a result, their feet, ankles, knees, tibias, and other lower parts become more vulnerable, especially while running, jumping, or landing. Basically, more force plus more body mass plus longer legs equals more injury. Now, if you're a Spurs or a Wemby fan, that's gotta be some worrying equation right there. But relax, there's some good news too. The good news is that the young man has always shown exceptional athleticism for a 7-footer, which goes to show that he's extremely fit for his height. This may just mean that he's escaped the stereotype and disadvantage that comes with being a giant baller. On the other hand though, the one thing that should keep you up at night is the fact that if an injury does occur, it might be very devastating for the player, the club, and you the fans. So the question now remains, what next? Who will the San Antonio Spurs turn to in the event of a devastating long-term injury to their star boy Victor Wembanyama? Well, firstly, the San Antonio Spurs are overdue for an appearance in the playoffs, and they'll be looking to do something about that as soon as the season gets underway. But then, an out-of-season injury for Wemby may just put paid to any hope of that happening. Oh, and this does not by any means invalidate the perceived quality of the rest of the squad. It just goes to show how crucial the youngster is to whatever the team does or hopes to do. He's become the core of the team, the backbone, if you may. And if history is as good a teacher as we've come to realize, everything falls apart once the center does not hold. But then again, while losing Wemby long-term almost certainly takes the San Antonio Spurs out of contention for postseason basketball, it doesn't necessarily spell the end of their season. However, they'll need other players to step up excellently to the occasion, and Devin Vassell may just have to put on his big boy pants and step in as the next best player. The shooting guard also had an explosive season by his standard the last time out, posting a season average of 19.5 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 4.1 assists per game. A personal best that was overly overshadowed by the coming out party of his superstar teammate. In the absence of Wemby though, the 24-year-old can finally bask in the light of being San Antonio's star player and ultimately provide the driving force to keep them afloat. Veteran and new recruit Chris Paul can also step up to provide the star power that you'll feel the Spurs will undoubtedly lack in the absence of the current Rookie of the Year. The 39-year-old may well be having his last dance in the NBA, but there's absolutely no denying the quality he offers. In his prime, there weren't many point guards who could stand up to the man they call the point guard, CP3 himself. One of only 3 players in NBA history to provide 11,000 assists, and the first to do so with over 20,000 career points to go. This is a superstar who topped the league for steals a jaw-dropping 4 times and was the assist leader an even more impressive 5 times. Of course, he's since past his prime, but class, as we all know, is permanent, and Chris Paul may yet have more in the tank to give if he gets called upon. The bottom line, however, remains that a significant injury to Wemby at this time will prove too costly for the San Antonio Spurs. Not just to them, but also to the rapidly rising baller. Here, let's take a brief look at what a devastating injury might mean for the electrifying youngster. Well, as a youngster slowly playing his way to NBA dominance, Wemby's development has been on an unbelievable trajectory, and he's showing no signs of ever slowing down. However, we've seen some similar talents like Wemby getting marred by injury. I mean, we all remember the meteoric rise of Greg Oden, right? Much like Wemby, Oden was a super talented youngster and an overall first pick in a draft class that featured big names like Kevin Durant. However, just when he was starting to really get into his rhythm, injury struck, and he never remained the same again. Other names like Brandon Roy, Yao Ming, and Derrick Rose also come to mind. And this alone can be a worry for young Victor. But there's also a big chance that he can come back even stronger after such a devastating injury. Or better still, he may be among the lucky 7-footers to enjoy an injury-free career. And in that case, there's absolutely no limit to what he'd be able to achieve in the prestigious NBA. What's your take though? Do you see Wembanyama having an injury-free career? And what do you think the effect of a devastating injury would be like for the youngster and his San Antonio Spurs team? Be sure to let us know your opinion in the comments below. And don't forget to smash that subscribe icon for more exciting videos about your favorite NBA stars.